We do not desire what we see clearly. We desire the shadow that refuses to be defined. Nietzsche. There are questions that are not just words thrown into the wind. They are master keys, keys forged in silence, capable of unlocking armored emotional gates that most men do not even imagine exist, let alone dare to try and open. When a man masters the supreme art of asking, he ceases to be a mere participant in a trivial conversation. He transcends. He is not just conducting a dialogue, he is guiding a woman inside herself to unexplored regions where raw emotion, dormant memory, and repressed desire mix in an absolutely confined way. It is there, exactly there, in the pulsating heart of the mystery, that real attraction is born. Not that superficial attraction that dissipates with the sunrise, but the attraction that traps, that drives one mad, that makes a woman think of you obsessively when the whole world around her falls silent and she finds herself alone with her own thoughts. The great tragedy of modern interaction is that the overwhelming majority of men try to impress by talking. They talk about themselves, about their achievements, about the weather, filling the void with noise. But the true seducers, the architects of the human mind, impress by asking. A good question is like an enchanted mirror positioned in another person's soul. It reflects who the woman really is, or rather, who she would like to be, and makes her feel, perhaps for the first time in years, that she has never really been heard before. That is why, when a man asks the right questions with the right intonation and at the precise moment, she disarms herself. Her heart, which was once a fortress surrounded by high walls of mistrust and boredom, begins to creak and open. The logical barriers dissolve like mist, and the game changes completely. But what are these questions, after all? What kind of question possesses the linguistic architecture necessary to awaken deep emotions, provoke the imagination, and create a connection she cannot explain rationally? The brutal truth is that it is not just about the words themselves. The words are merely the vehicle. The secret lies in the energy behind them, in the silent and predatory intention that inhabits your gaze, in the grave modulation of your voice tone, in the calculated pause before you allow her to answer. A man who understands this dominates the invisible rhythm of the conversation. He does not speak in a hurry. He does not have the anxiety of someone who needs to prove something. He operates on the frequency of certainty. He makes the woman feel. And the first question, the most powerful of all to initiate this dive, is the one that touches the narcissistic wound we all carry, that which she never dares to say out loud. Imagine the scenario. The environment is controlled, external noise is minimal. You look her in the eyes, hold the contact for a second longer than socially acceptable, and ask, "What has no one ever noticed about you, but that you desperately wish they would?" In this moment, something changes in the density of the air. It is palpable. It is as if a secret door opened inside her chest. No one has ever truly asked that. People see the appearance, the job title, the social function, but you are asking to see the essence. And when she stops to think to answer, observe her eyes. They will deviate slightly, searching for the answer in the dead archive of emotions. She dives into memories, into old pains, into unspoken desires for validation. In that exact second, you cease to be just a man sitting in front of her and become an ethereal presence, an echo resonating inside her mind. You validated her existence on a level that the boyfriend, the husband, or previous suitors never managed to scratch. Following this conducting wire, there is another question that transforms the conversation into something magnetic, almost gravitational. What do you miss most in your life, but never admit to anyone? This question lights a silent and dangerous fire. It touches the ego, the past, and the heart at the same time. It forces her mind to do a quick scan of what was lost: innocence, freedom, an old love, a version of herself that no longer exists. This causes her to reveal vulnerabilities she rarely shows, not even to her best friends. It is at this hour that the game turns in your favor, because the common man, the beta or insecure man, runs from vulnerability. He wants to solve problems or change the subject, while the man who understands the female psyche knows that it is there, in the sacred space of confession and fragility, that the indissoluble bond is born. The Machiavellian secret here is to understand that women do not fall in love with the answers they give. They fall in love with the sensations they experience while giving those answers. And every right question is a VIP invitation to feel. You do not need to be the most handsome man in the room, nor the richest, nor the most famous. You need to be the most curious, in a genuine and penetrating way. You need to make her feel like unexplored land being discovered by a fascinated explorer. The female mind feeds on mystery, but also on connection. It is a paradox. And when you awaken both at the same time, when she feels you understand her deeply and, at the same time, she cannot fully decipher you, you become an enigma impossible to forget. You become an addiction. Let's deepen this with a practical example that seems simple but carries a devastating emotional charge. What was the craziest thing you have ever done for love? Analyze the structure of this question. It seems innocent, almost casual, but it transports the woman instantly into a story. And understand this: every woman is moved by narratives. When answering, she is not just reporting facts, she is reliving the emotional state of that moment. She begins to relive the adrenaline, the laughter, the pain, the longing, the intensity of passion. And here is the psychological trick. Her brain does not know how to distinguish very well the source of the current emotion from the memory. Without realizing it, she projects and associates these high-intensity sensations with you, who are there in front of her now. You hijack the emotion of the past and anchor it to your image in the present. Each answer creates an emotional bridge, and if you know how to walk across it with silence, empathy, and a firm gaze, she will allow you to enter places in the psyche where no other man has reached in recent years. There are men who try to conquer through physical touch, invading personal space prematurely. Others try through appearance, polishing the surface. But those who really leave marks, positive emotional scars, are those who know how to ask. Because the female mind is like a complex labyrinth full of traps and dead ends, and every question of yours is a torch that illuminates a new corridor, revealing paths she herself had forgotten. When she realizes that you are not just trying to take her to bed, or at least not just that, but that you are trying to understand her, to dissect her emotionally, she surrenders in a way she cannot control. The logical defense mechanism shuts down, and it is in this moment that madness is born. Not a destructive, pathological madness, but that soft, sweet obsession that makes her daydream in the middle of the workday, imagining what else you could discover in her if you had more time. These questions are not cheap tricks from a seduction manual. They are portals. They are suspension bridges between the cynical rational and the thirsty emotional. They are surgical ways to open someone's soul with respect, with presence, with overwhelming intensity. Because in the end, what drives a woman crazy is not the man who speaks beautifully with difficult words. It is the man who makes her feel alive, vibrant, electric. A woman goes crazy for a man who makes her think, who challenges her emotionally, and awakens in her the primitive desire to reveal herself, to take off social masks. Seduction is not in saying, "You are beautiful." She has already heard that dozens of times on Instagram today. Seduction lies in asking, what makes you feel really alive to the point where time disappears? This question is like an ancient spell. It forces her out of the autopilot of routine, work, obligations. It forces her to remember moments of flow, intensity, passion, absolute freedom. And in that instant, while she searches for the answer, her eyes shine, her breathing changes, her posture opens. She feels alive there, in front of you. And once again, her brain associates this sensation of vitality with your presence. The secret is simple, but ignored by the masses. Women do not want ready-made answers. They want to be deciphered like a complex code.
Now, let's go to a darker and deeper area, a question that touches on fear. What scares you most about falling in love? This phrase cuts through defenses like a hot knife through butter. Every woman has fear. Fear of losing herself, fear of surrendering and it not being reciprocal, fear of repeating the pain of a past relationship, fear of being vulnerable. When she answers this, she is not just talking, she is handing you the map of the landmines of her heart. She is inviting you into the bunker. If you listen with total attention, without interrupting to give unsolicited advice, without wanting to fix her feeling, without trying to look like the wise alpha male. She realizes something extremely rare, that she can trust. And trust, my friend, is the shortest, fastest, and most direct path to true attraction and physical surrender. Questions like this create an emotional tension that is almost tactile. They are like invisible wires connecting your solar plexus to hers. At this point, she starts to feel something she doesn't understand rationally, because you are not competing with other men. You have left the rat race. You are playing on another field, in another league. The others want to impress with cars, watches, and stories of grandeur. You want to understand the soul. And this is the breaking point where she disarms. Not because you dominate her by force, but because you make her feel safe enough to be who she is, with all the shadows and lights. But attention, one must know how to ask. The tone of voice must be grave, slow. The silence must be comfortable. The gaze must be penetrating, but not frightening. Everything is part of the hidden language of seduction. When you ask something deep and then fall silent, looking into her eyes, a vacuum is created, an empty space. Human nature hates a vacuum, and it is in this vacuum that desire is born. She feels the psychological pressure to fill that silence with something true, and in doing so, hands over parts of herself she rarely shows the world. The art is in not breaking the enchantment with untimely jokes or banal comments. Maintain the tension. But not everything needs to be heavy and dark. There are also questions that awaken the playful side, the inner child, and latent sensuality. For example, if you could disappear for a whole day without anyone in the world knowing where you are or what you are doing, what would you do? This is a spark of freedom. It activates the imagination, invites the unconscious to play what if. She may laugh, may say something silly, but inside she is creating an image, a fantasy of escape, and you are now part of that fantasy as the accomplice. The conversation transforms into a game, and in this game, you are the architect of her imagery. Common men ask, "What do you do for a living?" focusing on boring work. Men who understand the feminine ask, "What would you do if no one judged you?" This variation is devastating because every woman lives divided, fractured between what society demands she be, the good girl, the professional, the mother, the wife, and what she would like to be, free, wild, unhindered. When you touch on this duality, you awaken the repressed fire. She feels understood in her complexity, almost exposed, but in an exciting way. And this mix of vulnerability and desire for transgression is what drives her crazy. But careful, a fundamental warning. The right questions require true presence. If you use them as memorized tricks, as lines from a cheap script without feeling their weight, she feels it. The feminine is instinctive, it is visceral, and it perceives falseness and incongruity in milliseconds. The difference between seductive charm and repulsive manipulation is in the intention. When you ask because you want to discover who she is, the effect is magnetic. When you ask just to extract something, the effect is repulsive. She needs to feel she is facing someone rare. And in today's world, rarity is the greatest aphrodisiac that exists. Asking is dancing with mystery. It is leading the waltz without imposing the steps. It is leaving space for the other to reveal themselves while you observe with contained fascination. What really drives a woman crazy is not the compliment about her body, nor the premature touch. It is the intoxicating sensation that someone sees her beyond the surface, that someone possesses X-ray vision that goes through the flesh and reaches the soul.
Therefore, when asking questions, do not look only for verbal answers. Look for reactions. Become an observer of micro-expressions. Observe her gaze change, her pupil dilate, the smile appears slowly at the corner of her mouth, the body lean unconsciously in your direction, the neck becoming exposed. This is silent communication. It is the invisible field where attraction is built, brick by brick. And when she starts to share stories, for the love of everything sacred, do not interrupt her. Every word of hers is a window to her inner world. Every memory is a treasure map. The man who listens actively is not passive or submissive. On the contrary, he is the patient hunter observing the prey, the artist drawing with silence, the alchemist transforming simple bar conversations into pure and distilled desire. Deep down, the right questions are not just tools of conquest for you to take someone to bed. They are mirrors that show who you are too, because while making her speak, you reveal yourself in the way you listen, in the security of not needing to compete for the word, in the way you react with stoic calm. That is where reciprocity is born. That is where the bond ceases to be a game of cat and mouse and becomes real energy exchanged between two poles. And when this energy is established, when she feels you understand her, but you still remain a mystery to her because you asked more than you answered, her mind begins to work for you. The process of incumbency begins. Every hour you spend apart turns into curiosity. What is he thinking? Is he analyzing someone else right now? Every memory of the conversation turns into desire. And that is how a man enters a woman's head and rents a penthouse apartment in her mind without saying another word. There is something almost hypnotic about a man who knows how to conduct a conversation with abyssal depth. He does not speak to be admired. He speaks to create an atmosphere, a climate, a bubble where only the two of you exist. And within that atmosphere, every question becomes an electric current running through her neural network, awakening memories, fears, and fantasies that were dormant under layers of routine. It is as if he touched a secret chord inside her, a musical note that no one else knew existed in the instrument. One of the most subtle and, at the same time, most devastating questions to deepen this level is, what do you hide even from yourself? Stop and think about the weight of that. This is not just a provocation, it is a dive into the abyss. It forces the woman to look at her own shadow, at the desires and thoughts she tries to repress and hide, even from her own moral conscience. And if you maintain a calm gaze, without judgment, accepting any answer, something magical happens. She feels free, and freedom is addictive. When a woman feels free in your presence to be her most incorrect version, she begins to open up in a way she never would with the nice guy or the cliché bad boy.
There is also the question that activates her instinct for seduction, one that awakens the playful, mysterious, and provocative side, testing the power dynamic. Do you like it better when someone understands you completely, or when someone challenges you and throws you off balance? This simple choice reveals much more than it seems about her personality. Some will smile ironically and say, "challenge," revealing a competitive and intense nature. Others will say, "understanding," revealing a need for welcoming. But all will think. You create an internal dilemma, and this dilemma generates tension. And sexual tension is the fuel of desire. The right questions do not just reveal information, they build a climate, a sexual tension that hangs in the air like static electricity before a storm. Each word spoken is like a musical note, and the silence between phrases is the measure that gives rhythm to the melody. The secret of mastery is to alternate between deep curiosity and unfathomable mystery, between emotional intensity and the lightness of humor. It is this oscillation that keeps the game alive and unpredictable. When she starts to relax too much and speak with excessive naturalness, it is time to change the tone, to pull the rug. An unexpected question, said with a calm voice, can turn the game again. When was the last time someone looked you in the eyes and made you feel truly seen without wanting anything in return? This phrase touches the heart of the existential lack of every modern woman. Because deep down, in a world of likes and quick views, they all miss being seen beyond appearance, beyond the body, beyond the social role they play. And when she feels that you perceive this, that you are the conscious observer, you become the exception. And understand, all female desire is born of the exception, of what is rare, of what is unique. Each of these questions has an ancestral power, almost shamanic, the power to make the other remember themselves. The common man wastes energy trying to convince a woman that he is interesting. The man who masters the game reverses the polarity. He makes her feel like the most interesting person in the world. This is the fundamental difference between seeking validation, beta behavior, and offering presence, alpha behavior. There is a specific moment in every deep conversation where the air changes definitively. It is the turning point. It is when she starts to look at you differently, with a slower, moist shine, a silent curiosity that wasn't there before. She is not just listening to what you say, she is feeling who you are. She is reading your sub-communication. And this only happens when your questions are not artificial, but born of a genuine desire to understand the human soul. But there is also a more provocative and direct side to this game, that of sensual curiosity, which must be introduced with caution and surgical precision. When you ask with a half smile, slightly malicious, "What is the kind of touch that makes you forget the world and lose track of time?" It doesn't matter if she answers verbally or if she gets shy. The simple question has already lit the imagination. the work is done. She begins to imagine the answer, to visualize the touch, and her body reacts physiologically to the image created in her own mind. The skin gets goosebumps, the heat rises. It is an invisible dance between words and physical sensations. And here is the most dangerous secret of behavioral psychology applied to seduction. The more you awaken the mind, the more the body follows. Physical attraction for a woman is often a direct consequence of prior emotional and intellectual stimulation. A woman feels desire when a man makes her unconscious vibrate. And the right questions are the password to this operating system. Therefore, the true seducer is not the one who talks a lot, who dominates the room with noise, but the one who awakens enough to let the rest happen alone in her mind. He understands that attraction is an alchemical process where every word is an ingredient, every silence is a flame, and every look is a spark. The questions are the initial fire, but what keeps them burning is the way you listen. Listening is an act of supreme power. When she realizes that you pay attention to tiny details, to the pauses in her speech, to the gestures of her hands, she feels you are totally present. And presence in today's distracted world is the greatest aphrodisiac that exists. This is how a man enters a woman's soul, not forcing the door, but leading her to open the lock, not imposing his will, but inviting her to surrender, not trying to conquer like a battle, but awakening what already exists inside her. The right questions do not create desire from nothing. They reveal it, dust it off. The power of questions lies not only in the act of asking them, but in the deafening silence that comes after. It is in this instant of pause that her mind works alone, reconstructing memories, projecting future sensations onto you, reliving what was forgotten. This is the fertile ground where desire is born. In the interval between what was said and what can still be said. And it is there, in this liminal space, that the man who understands the feminine inhabits, between the word and the mystery. When she answers something intimate and you just smile, maintaining a fixed gaze, without correcting her, without trying to seem smarter or give a moral lesson, she feels something rare. Unconditional acceptance mixed with desire. The sensation of being truly heard is intoxicating. Women do not go crazy for perfect men from magazine covers, but for men who make them feel seen, understood, awakened from the sleep of mediocrity. Beauty may attract the eyes at first, but it is presence, depth, that holds the soul in the long run. And there is a final question. The question that seals the enchantment. The one that makes her think of you even when she tries to forget. When she tries to focus on work or on another man. What do you still desperately want to live, but feel that time is passing too quickly to realize? This question touches the female soul deeply and existentially, because it speaks of something universal. Finitude, the fear of losing the intensity of life, the fear of aging without having lived everything. When you awaken this feeling of urgency and desire for life, you are no longer just a random man. You become a symbol. She associates you with the desire to live, with adventure, with breaking the routine. And that is what really drives her crazy, because you come to represent something that transcends the physical. You become the exit door from her monotonous life.
The true mastery of the art of asking is not rational, logical, or linear. It is intuitive. It is being attentive to what her words do not say, but what her body screams. It is noticing when her gaze changes direction, when the tone of voice warns that something sensitive has been touched, when breathing slows down or becomes panting. All this is language. All this is response. And when you start to perceive these subtleties, you discover that verbal conversation is only the surface of a much deeper and darker ocean. A woman falls in love in the detail, in the gesture that seems distracted but carries intention, in the question that seems casual but touches the collective unconscious. When she feels that there is something in you that understands her without her needing to draw or explain exhaustively, she gets lost. She surrenders. And loving, deep down, is this: losing oneself in the other. The right questions are not a vile manipulation technique, but a necessary bridge. A bridge between two distinct universes, the masculine and the feminine, that rarely truly meet these days. When a man looks at a woman and asks something no one has ever asked, he makes her feel unique among billions. And when she feels unique, you become unforgettable, irreplaceable. This is why so many men go unnoticed, become friends, or are ignored, because they live on the surface. They talk about traffic, about politics, about safe banalities. But the man who dives, who takes the risk, who asks what really matters, who makes her listen to herself while she speaks, creates a bond that goes beyond logic and reason. He awakens something she didn't even know existed. In the end, it is not about having a memorized manual, but about presence and courage. The right questions arise naturally when there is genuine interest, but also when there is a connection strategy. When you really want to understand, not just seduce, seduction happens as an inevitable side effect. And the more you understand,
the more she feels. It is an invisible and vicious cycle. Curiosity generates connection. Connection generates trust. Trust generates desire. Desire generates memory. And memory is what makes her think of you when the world falls silent, when she puts her head on the pillow. The madness these questions awaken is not hysteria nor fleeting teenage passion. It is the type of deep enchantment that is born from the soul. It is the fascination for someone who makes time stop, who takes her out of the role of common woman and puts her back on the throne of the feminine, that archetypal place where she feels she can be, feel, and exist without masks, without judgments, just being pure energy. A man like this is not only desired, he is feared, in the good sense. Feared because she knows, deep down, she will never find another equal again. That he raised the bar to a level unreachable for others. You become the echo she hears when she lies down, the intrusive thought that insists on returning when she tries to move on with life. And all this started with something simple, almost banal, a question. So, before spending hours thinking about what you are going to say to conquer a woman on the perfect speech, stop. Think about what you are going to ask to know her. Because the right question, asked at the right moment with the right intention, is like an irrevocable spell. And once it is cast, nothing goes back to how it was before. There is a point where seduction becomes almost spiritual, transcendental, when the conversation ceases to be an exchange of words and becomes an exchange of pure energy, when what matters is no longer what is said, but what is felt vibrating in the air between one sentence and another. It is at this point that common men get lost, because they try to impress rationally when they should just vibrate emotionally. The woman feels this difference on her skin. She has a radar for this. She perceives when a man speaks to fill the awkward silence, and when he speaks because the silence has become too alive, too intense.
The man who masters the power of questions does not seek informative answers. He awakens worlds. Every woman carries within herself entire universes, galaxies of feelings that no one has ever visited. Forgotten memories, dormant desires, old wounds that still pulsate. When you ask the right question, you are not just provoking a dialogue, you are opening a dimensional door. And by walking through that door, something in you also transforms, because you become the guardian of these secrets. One of the most subtle and dangerous questions to finish, the one that requires total courage, is, do you believe you have ever been truly loved in the way your soul demands? Few have the titanic courage to ask this question, and fewer still are ready to hear the answer, because it comes loaded with heavy stories, long silences, gazes lost on the horizon. Maybe she says yes to keep up appearances.
Maybe she hesitates and her eyes fill with water. But what matters is what happens inside, in her biochemistry. She revisits moments, memories, touches, frustrations, and in the middle of this emotional whirlwind, your face mixes with the ghosts of the past. The emotion she relives anchors itself to you, and this is what creates the connection, the definitive emotional memory. Another question that penetrates deep into the concept of destiny. Do you believe two people can recognize each other energetically, even before knowing each other physically? This is a question that touches the unconscious, awakens instinct, spirituality, the idea of soulmates. Even if she is skeptical, even if she doesn't know how to answer, the question plants an idea, a seed. And ideas are dangerous, like viruses, because they continue growing in silence even when the conversation ends. You become the symbol of this mysterious sensation of recognition. The face she associates with destiny, with chance, with what cannot be explained by cold logic. Understand once and for all, women do not fall in love only with men of flesh and bone. They fall in love with the sensations and emotional states that these men awaken in them. Therefore, every question must be designed as a complete experience. The way you look while asking, the tone of voice dropping at the end of the sentence, the slow rhythm of speech, everything is part of the subtle hypnosis of connection. A man who speaks slowly, with deliberate intention, who lets the words breathe in the air, creates an irresistible magnetic field. She leans in his direction, wants to hear more, wants to decipher, and when she wants to hear more, she is already caught in the web.
There are also questions that touch the body without touching the skin. The phantom touch. If I looked at you now, in silence, as if time stopped, what would you do? This is the final bridge between the emotional and the physical. It is the invitation without an explicit invitation. It is permission. She feels the weight of imagination, and the body reacts even before she realizes, because desire begins in the mind, and the right words are like invisible fingers running through what is forbidden, caressing her nape. But the true power, the grand finale, is in knowing when to stop, when to let silence speak for you. It is in this instant that she feels your absence as a physical presence, that the void between phrases turns into unbearable tension. And that is where eternal fascination lives. The woman goes crazy not when she has all the answers about you, but when she feels there is still an entire ocean to discover. The wise man, the strategist of love, understands that every question is a seed, and that time, mystery, and strategic distance are the water that makes it bloom. When you plant something in her mind with precision, you don't need to chase. You don't need to send a desperate message the next day, because her thought will run to you. Later, maybe days later, she catches herself remembering the conversation in the shower, the questions, the pauses, your gaze, and will feel something inexplicable in her chest, a shiver
that does not come from physical memories, but from something deeper, from energetic recognition. And that is where the game ends and victory is declared. When you no longer need to be physically present to continue being present in her mind. And deep down, that is exactly what drives any woman crazy. The man who does not try to conquer her like a trophy, but reveal her like a work of art. The man who makes her feel as if the universe had stopped for an instant just to hear her breathe. A man who understands the power of questions understands the power of silence. And he who masters silence masters desire. Because silence is the mirror of the soul, and in the right mirror, she sees herself reflected in you. So when she looks at you with that slow shine, with that smile that mixes fear of surrendering and curiosity to go forward, understand, you didn't just conquer a woman, you awakened a force of nature. And forces like that are not controlled, only lived.